Good morning, students. We are in continuation of a chapter number 14, Wind and Storm. Till now, we have studied about air and about the properties of the air. Now we come to the topic wind. What is wind? Moving air is called wind. Okay. And how is wind formed? How does air, it starts moving and it leads to the formation of wind. See what happens when the sun is there. Sun, it heats the land area. Okay, so the air on the land, it starts rising up. It becomes warm and the warm air rises up. Okay, whenever the temperature is high, the pressure becomes low. Pressure and temperature, they are inversely proportional to each other. That means if one increases, the other decreases. So here there is high temperature. That's why the air has become warm and it is rising up. So it is creating a low pressure area here. So what happens? The winds from the surrounding areas, which are not that hot, they cool air. There the pressure is still high. From there, the high pressure area winds, they come and take its place. Right? So the wind always flows from high pressure area to low pressure area. This thing you have to remember, that wind always flows from the high pressure area to the low pressure area. And this continuous movement of the air, see what happens. Here the air is getting warmed up, it is rising up. Okay, it is rising up. When it reaches to a higher altitude, it becomes cool and it sinks down. Okay, sinks down, that means it becomes cool. So, and it comes on the other side. This cool air, then it goes here to take its place. So there is a continuous movement of the air. And this continuous movement of the air is known as wind current. Okay, the moving air is called wind and this continuous movement of the air is called wind current. Is that clear? Now, what is the property of this wind? See, whenever there is a high speed wind, that means when the air is moving at a very high speed, it reduces the air pressure over it or in that region. I'll give you an example to understand that. See, this fact, it was discovered by a Swiss mathematician. His name was Daniel Bernoulli. Okay, he discovered this fact that whenever the high speed wind is blowing, then what does it do? It reduces the pressure over the area, over this area or in that area, not below. Okay, whenever the wind is flowing, the pressure on the upper area or on the region which is above that wind or in that particular area only, there the pressure gets reduced. Okay, now example of this is, see what we do is, this is a thin strip of paper. When we take it in our mouth and we blow it, it goes straight up. Have you seen this kind of thing? It produces sound also. You must have seen. Okay, this is available with the hawkers. What you will do, it is lying down. Okay, and when you blow air in it, it goes up. It becomes straight. Why? See, what happens is when you blow air in it, there, that means that is a moving air. Okay, so it is a wind over there. It is reducing the pressure over this. Wherever the wind is blowing, on top of that, the pressure is low. But at the bottom, pressure is high. So the high pressure at the bottom, it lifts this strip of paper up. Is that clear? Another example. The roofs of the houses. What happens when the wind blows? So you have seen the roofs of the houses, they blow away. They get pushed from bottom and they blow and they get carried away to the distant places. How come that happens, beta? That happens, why? Because when the wind is blowing, okay, this wind is blowing, the pressure on top area is low, right? Suppose there is a hut over here and it has a roof. So the wind is blowing like this. So the pressure on top of that is low. But pressure under that, below that is much more higher. So it will lift the roof up and it will blow along with the wind. Got it? This is how this works. Now another example now. To demonstrate that wind reduces the air pressure in the region where it flows. On top region also and in that region also. Materials required: 2 balloons, thread and a stand. What you will do is, you can try this experiment at home also. You take a stand and you tie 2 balloons a little distant away, a little far away, and then you will blow the air between these 2 balloons with the help of a pipe, a hollow pipe. Okay, you blow the air between these 2 balloons. So what will happen? Instead of going apart, they will come and stick to each other. How come? See, there are 2 balloons and we are blowing air between them. So here what happens? The pressure gets reduced. Okay, but the pressure here outside is much more. So it will force the balloons to come close to each other. Otherwise you would have said, ma'am, when we are blowing air here, they will go apart. No, they will not go apart. They will come close to each other. You can try this. Okay. So this happens because the air pressure between the balloon decreases when air is blown through the gap between them. So the high pressure on the other side of the balloons pushes them towards each other. Thus, wind reduces the pressure in the region where it flows. Is that clear? Now girls, next topic here is why the wind currents are formed. Okay. Now the wind currents are formed due to uneven heating of the Earth's surface between the equator and the poles. The equatorial regions receive more sunlight compared to the polar regions. Therefore, the air near the Earth's surface in the equatorial region gets heated and rises up. So what happens? This is the equator. This equator gets more heat than the other part of the Earth. So what happens? The warm air, it starts rising up from here. Okay, and the low pressure is created here. So what happens? The cool air from this Tropic of Cancer and Tropic of Capricorn, they start coming from these areas, cool air, to take its place, right? This cold air from the high pressure regions on the either side of the equator up to the altitude of 30 degrees flows in to the low pressure regions near the equator. These are cold air are going towards the equator to fill this space. Okay. Now, the warm air which rises up cools and sinks down in the regions of latitude nearly 30 degrees north and south of the equator. What happens? This warm air which had gone up, it becomes, when it reaches to the higher altitude, it becomes cool and it again starts sinking down. As the cool air sinks, this area becomes a high pressure region. Once again, the wind flows from this high pressure regions to the equatorial and the polar regions. Now what happens? When this warm air, see, it is going here and here. It doesn't mean it is going down. Earth is not like this. Okay, so it flows away from the equatorial region, this warm air. When it reaches to the other altitudes, higher altitudes, it becomes cool and it sinks. When the air becomes cool, the temperature is low, again here the high pressure area is created. Right? Now the high pressure is created here. So what happens? It starts flowing to the equatorial and the polar regions again. Here the high pressure is there, wind always flows from the high pressure to the low pressure area. So it starts moving this direction also, it starts moving this direction also. To the polar regions also, to the equatorial region also. Okay. Now, as the wind flows towards the poles at the region of latitude around 60 degrees from the equator, it meets the cold air from the poles and rises up, creating low pressure regions in these areas. The cold air from the polar regions flows again towards these low pressure regions. So what happens? When these winds, these warm, see, try to understand. Here First, it becomes very warm at the equatorial region. The warm air rises up in both the directions. It goes here also, it goes here also. And the cool air from these high altitude, they come to take its place. When these winds, they reach to these altitudes, they become cool again. Okay. And when they become cool, the pressure becomes high here. So these winds again start flowing towards the equator also and towards the polar region also. Okay. When they are moving towards the polar region, what happens? Here, the cool air is there already there. They meet those cool air winds. Cool winds. They meet them. Okay. When they meet them, they become even more cool. And when they become cool, the high pressure area is created. And they again start moving. So this all movement of the air, it forms the wind currents. Right? It is mainly because of the uneven heating of the earth's surface by the sun. Now, due to the effect of the rotation of the earth, the wind flowing in the northern hemisphere of the earth bends towards its right, and the wind in the southern hemisphere bends towards its left. This is due to the origin of a force called Coriolis Force, caused by the rotation of the earth about its own axis. We know that earth is a bit tilted on its axis. It's not straight, it's tilted. Because of this tilt and because of the rotation of the earth on its axis, what happens? There are two hemispheres here. The winds in the northern hemisphere, they bend towards the right side, and the winds blowing in the southern hemisphere bend towards the left side. Okay. And because of the force, what is the force which is acting here? Force is the Coriolis Force. Okay, what is that force called? Coriolis Force. And this force has occurred because of the tilt of the earth on its axis. So the direction of Coriolis Force in the northern hemisphere is towards right, and in the southern hemisphere towards left. You have to remember this. This force is caused by the rotation of the earth on its axis, and the direction of this force is, it only forces the winds to flow in the right direction in the northern hemisphere and towards the south, towards the left direction in the southern hemisphere. Right? Now we come to the various instruments to measure the speed of the wind and the direction of the wind. There are two different instruments. To measure the speed of the wind, we use anemometer. Right? So the speed is measured by anemometer. Okay? And it is expressed in kilometer per hour. This is one of the anemometer. This is cup anemometer. Okay, and the direction of the wind is measured by wind vane and a windsock. Right? So these are the wind vanes and the windsock. Just you have to remember the names with which we measure the speed of the wind, with which instrument, and with which instrument we measure the direction of the wind. Now girls, there is a table given here. It is an important table. So when the speed is about 1 to 6 km per hour, then it is called light air. And what are the effects that are caused? Wind motion visible in smoke. When it is 7 to 11 km, it is called light breeze. And what happens with that? The leaves, they start moving. Bit of leaves are moving, that means a breeze is blowing, cool breeze. 12 to 19, it is called gentle breeze. Leaves in constant motion. The leaves are constantly moving. When it is 13 to 18 km, it is a moderate breeze and the dust is raised. Now the breeze has become a bit more speedy, bit more windy, and so the dust is also getting raised along with that. When it is 19 to 24 km, then it is called breezy, and the small trees sway. The trees also starting swaying, but the small trees. When it is 25 to 31 km, then it is a strong breeze and the large branches move. 32 to 38, it's called gale, near gale, and the whole trees, they are in motion. When it is 39 to 46, it's called gale. Okay, the strong wind is called gale, and the twigs, they break. The small branches, they start breaking with that gale. When it is 47 to 54 kilometer, it is called a strong gale, and the light structure damage. Small structures like the structures which are not firm, they get damaged. When it is 64 to 73 kilometer, it is called storm, and the trees get uprooted. With the storm, now storm is very, it causes a lot of damage, so trees, they get uprooted. When it is 74 to 95, it is called a violent storm, and the wide range damage, lot of damage there. The buildings, they get damaged, the vehicles, they get damaged, all those things. When it is 55 to 63, it is called hurricane, and it is causing excessive damage. Okay, now girls, we come to the thunderstorms and cyclones. Now, what do you mean by thunderstorm? You all know it very well. What is thunderstorm? It is a weather condition which is formed by the lightning and by the thunder, which is accompanied by thunder also and by lightning also. That is called a thunderstorm. Now, they are also accompanied by strong winds and heavy rains. And they are mainly of 4 types: single cell, multi-cell cluster, multi-cells lines, and supercell. Supercell thunderstorms, they are the strongest among all, and they are responsible for the severe weather conditions. Okay. Now, how the thunderstorms are formed? We'll discuss about it. Now girls, what happens when the warm air, it goes up in the sky, it gets heated, it goes up in the sky, it condenses. When it reaches to the high altitude, it condenses to form tiny droplets of water. These droplets, they combine together to form clouds. You know this very well. Now these clouds, they become heavy, and then the precipitation takes place. That means the rain takes place. During the rain, the water droplets that are coming down, they collide with each other also, and with the air which is present in the atmosphere. Because of this collision, what happens? The friction occurs. Okay, and this friction, it causes the charging in the clouds. See what is happening? Charging in the clouds or in the water droplets. So what is happening? The rain which is coming down, when it is just coming out from the clouds, they collide with each other, and with the air also they collide, which causes friction, and this friction causes a charging in the clouds or the water droplets, and which further causes the lightning. Because of this discharge of the charge, it causes the lightning. Now what happens? During the lightning, the air which is all around it, it gets heated up. Because there is an electricity in the lightning. Because of that electricity, the air gets heated up. And it expands with a huge sound. And that sound is called as thunder. So this is how the thunderstorms are formed. Now what are the precautions that we should take during the thunderstorms? If you are inside your houses or any building, just stay inside till the thunderstorm stops. We should not go out. If you are outside, do not hold an umbrella and walk during the thunderstorm. Why shouldn't we hold the umbrella? Because the lightning, because the charge which is there already in the air and in the water droplets, it may come through that metal handle, and it may cause damage to our body. Right? Do not take shelter under the tree, as it creates an easy path for the discharge of electricity during the lightning. Trees also form an easy discharge of the electricity during the lightning. If you are sitting inside a vehicle, do not come out of the vehicle. We should not hold any metal items. We should not be under the trees. We should just be inside the house or a concrete building. Okay, so these are the precautions that we must take during the thunderstorm. Now only the cyclones and tornadoes are left, that we will discuss in the next session.